Alrighty, so top tier is good. 2 arty. We got a couple of scouts. This is encounter mode. So typically on encounter mode in medium tanks, the first thing I'll do is I'll start heading up here, and then I'll cut across this way, because a couple of things will happen. One, if your light tanks actually do scout, you can sometimes see heavies coming across this way, and you'll be able to get some free shots of damage. Usually there's not a whole lot else for you to do in the early game, because even if you drive all the way over here to this 5-6 line, you're just going to be basically sitting there waiting for their team to get across and whatnot. So I generally drive north here just in case, and if my light tanks don't come through there to light, then occasionally if I'm in a faster tank, I'll just do a little cursory surf. But the idea is that on any of these maps, especially if you do have light tanks, you want to try to get yourself in a position to take advantage of any lights that they potentially get by just being in a position to shoot things. So see how it looks like your T-37 is going to go high on that hill, so that's potentially, he's going to light guys as they basically cross this road right here. And so one of the things that you can do, if this T-37 doesn't light, you're just slightly low on the hill. If you come up a little bit higher, you can basically, you need to break this horizon here. So if you're maybe 5 to 10 meters more to your left here, you can light. And again, remember, so the purpose or the principle behind surfing is that the front of your turret, basically where the gun mounts into the gun mantlet, that's a detection point for you, so you can spot things out of this area right here. So all you need to do is you need to just put that edge of your turret over the horizon, and that's how you will spot things. And then what you don't want to do is what you just did, which is basically stop. Like if you're up, especially if you're up high on this ridge and some guy's coming across, just go ahead and take the snapshot while you're fully on the move, from that range. And because what you don't want to do is slow down, because especially when games with it, like if there is no artillery, that's fine, you can do what you're doing. But when there's artillery, you don't want to stop like that, especially if you're gonna run into the guy behind you. But in general, this is not, one of the things that I always say is that if you're gonna play through this middle here when there's artillery, you don't want to come up here and poke. You always want to be moving laterally, because that's going to make it a lot more difficult for artillery to hit you. So unless there's a really darn good reason for you to stop, you really don't want to stop that. So their Tiger P is down here, which is actually potentially good for you. You just need to not take them on frontally. And it looks like your scouts are scouting though, so that is excellent news. And then so basically all you want to do is just play, you can play anywhere on this midline, the center east midline here, because that's what's going to get you shots. You don't want to stray too far to this west, because you actually don't get very good shots. Once there's this little bowl over here, you actually don't get very good shots from over there. You want to hang out in this area right here. And there's not a lot that you can do, like against these guys that are right on the other side. There's not a whole lot that you can do other than keep them lit if your guys are not keeping them lit already.
We've damaged them.
And then this scrolling, see how you scrolled back and stopped? That's an Artie's wet dream. You don't want to do that. Again, like especially in this type of scenario, you want to be moving laterally. You're just too easy to hit. Especially if you're on this 6 line, because if I'm in artillery, I'm always looking to hit this 6 line. See how your artillery shot at there, Tiger P. Like that's a very prominent goal. And so moving up here is a risky move. You can be relatively protected from direct fire behind this rock, but especially if artillery made it out, you can get hit directly, and you can get splashed from either side still. So this isn't a good place to hang out just because of the indirect fire, especially, and additionally if they control the hill, then you're also going to have problems there. And so what I noticed that you're doing a lot is you're using reverse a lot, and again, reverse is not very good on this map. You always want to be moving forward. You much rather move forward and turn, and make a U-turn if you need to turn around rather than actually go in reverse. Unless you're unless you're in this exact spot that you're in now. And this is so when we shoot at the hill, like you'll notice that when I shoot at the hill, I'm almost always in this area right here. And the reason why is that, so there's this little hill here, and what this hill does right here is that it protects you from being lit from this west side here. So there's no light tanks that can light you over. The only light tanks that can actually light you are light tanks that actually come over the top of this ridge right here. So that gives you protection from lighting. It also allows you to shoot up at this hill. And so this is the only place where you'll see me just kind of sit and hang out and basically feel relatively safe. And then, of course, always want to shoot down the yellow house, because once you do, you'll get better shots at that. And then, so the way this hill works is that there's a little dead spot where this IS is at. If he moves a little bit more forward or a little bit more back, you can shoot him, and that's pretty much the only dead spot that's there. So, I guess my point is, so you see how you rocked back there? Because you thought, oh, if I rock back, I'll get a better shot on the IS. That's not actually the case. If you rock back to that position, it's not going to get you a better shot at the IS. He just needs to actually move. And then, so you see how you shot and then you scrolled back there? Again, as long as they're not surfing over the top of this, you're actually safer staying in this pocket here, and that's anywhere basically from this crater to about right there. You're actually better staying in that pocket, simply because if you scroll back and they do have a guy up here, then you'll actually get lit by this guy as you scroll back. But the only way that he's going to light you otherwise is if he surfs up top. So you can basically, this is why I sit here, is you can basically just sit here the whole time, and if they're not surfing, all you got to do is sit here and just punish the whole time. So there's no reason for you to go back and then get aim and then go forward and then go back. Just sit there, go to town, my man. Just go to town. Like, there's no reason why you shouldn't be shooting at this RL on cooldown.
Enemy armor is hit. We've damaged them.
There we go. So now you're getting it. You got, and this is basically a bully position. And see how this Tiger P is coming up through that middle? That's exact same thing. If you scroll back, that's a potential for him to light you. As long as you're sitting in this pocket, you can punish up here, and you don't really need to worry about anything else. Like, you could theoretically drive over here and get shots onto that Tiger P, but that's an exposed position on this side, simply because anything that's over here can shoot you, and he will light you, which means anything that's over here can shoot you. Typically what you want to do is identify which tanks are going to be the biggest threat to your team. Like, this Tiger P isn't breaking your team right now, right? His position, where he's at, that's a bad position to put a heavy tank in general, and it's not like he's pushing your guys. It's not like he's a huge threat there to break that side. And so typically what you want to do is you want to look and see, you've got most of your guys on this side. You've got lit targets that are up here. You're in a position where you can shoot said lit targets easily. So, like, as far as prioritization, this is by far the greatest prioritization, because these guys, they're not going to be able to deal damage to these guys down here nearly as easily as you can from your position, which is why this 6-line position ends up being really important from either side. You have to have guys there that can actually deal damage up here, because it's difficult for either of these guys. It's difficult for these enemy guys to deal damage to your guys, but right, their 6-line guys can get shots on them. Their Artie can get shots on your guys. Their guys from back here can get shots on your guys. But on your side, only you can really get shots on them. So you have to take that into account when you're prioritizing. So far in this game, you're spending a lot of your reload cycles just hanging out when there's viable targets sitting out in the open that you should be shooting. And then you can scroll up here, especially when they're not surfing. You can scroll almost all the way up here. You don't quite want to crest here, so you can maybe move like another couple meters forward, but that's it. But you don't really, Like, so there's this gap between these houses right here that you can shoot. You don't really want to move up so far that you can shoot in through this gap right there. Like, this is basically the final gap that you'll want to shoot through, because essentially what's going to happen is that this hill tapers down a little bit more and it just goes below the horizon, and you have to go too high here in order to shoot them. But once they've backed off this far, it's actually really easy now then for your team to push in. But what you wanted to do is you wanted to soften these guys up a bit more than where they're at, to make it easier for your guys to be brave over here. The haircut. You have that shot. And if you gotta shoot down the house, you gotta shoot down the house. Now is when you can move slightly more forward or slightly more back in order to shoot around this house, right? Because you've got them tracked, right? So if you move back probably about a meter, maybe 2 meters, you'll be able to get shots into the... You'll be able to get shots into his front track here. Oh man, I can't highlight him. Can't quite. Oh, I can almost hide him. So if you scroll back like 2 meters, 1 or 2 meters, you can get shots into that track right there. So that's what you want to look to do. Maybe slightly more. And so you want to shoot a little bit more through that drive wheel. Like that shot, which strayed a little bit to the left, hit where you wanted to hit, but that's where you want your center reticle to be. But that's good. Like that's what you needed to do, especially when you get that one guy down, then you don't have to worry about the rest. And then now see how your guys are over here. Like this becomes the next prioritization here. If you can either push these guys back or otherwise prevent them from moving too far forward. A lot of this, and especially on encounter, you can mostly ignore the west because people who go to the west tend to be campers. Although now that this Tiger P is going out here, now is when you can get shots out here. And so one of the things about this particular configuration is that you're going to be relatively low priority because these guys over here have been lit for a while and this east side is breaking. So you want to just start laying into this Tiger P while he's side profile. So he's basically moving into a position where you can flank him with your buddy here. You just need to be able to, one of you needs to be able to get good shots at all times. Like you're moving forward towards him here, you don't need to. You could just sit there and just start shooting. Like you're spending a little bit too much time micro positioning here when you need to just be shooting. Because what the best way that you can help your friend right now is to just punish, just straight punish this guy.
Enemy is hit. Enemy armor
Nice track, and then you should, yeah, that's a good position. Maybe slightly to the left a little. And slightly down a little, because you're actually looking to keep him tracked out there. Like that's more important than. Although I guess now you might as well just kill him. And unfortunately, your buddy did die. And so you're pushing to this west over here, which I don't really think is that solid of a play. I would actually push over on this side. They probably still have a bunch of campers back there, so I wouldn't really worry about trying to solo this tiger. Because that's essentially what this will amount to. Like you know that Hellcat has probably moved up into those houses right there. So you'd rather help these guys. Like again, as far as the entire west side of the map, it's not a huge priority. This west side of the map. Really, this side is what's important. If you sacrifice the west, but you hold the east, you still have all the keys to the game because they got to come across in order to get to you because you've got the cap and they don't. And you can shoot through here. I mean, you have come this far. And in this particular case, I'd actually take out this T-34 first rather than the Tiger 1, simply because he's going to be the faster one. You can always get away from the Tiger, but you're not going to really be able to get away from the T-34 quite as easily. Even though he is the higher tier tank, you're not going to be able to whittle him down before he kills your spotter. And you're not going to get a whole lot of help from the backside here.
Enemy is hit. Enemy armor is hit.
And this is sort of the danger of being on this side. and you did stop here, which again, stopping now is not so much of a good idea, because now they're going to start being able to get more artillery fire onto that position, and you're going to start to see why it's a bad idea to come over here when these tanks are over here, because this lane that you're in right now is not going to be easy to play out of. And so, as I was saying earlier, it would have been a much better idea for you just, rather than try to regain this side, which is really tactically not important, it would have been better for you to actually win this other side here. And again, remember, once like these guys move down here, you don't want to be anywhere in here. You do not want to be anywhere in this area. It's just too difficult to play out of. It's really easy for these guys to get shots into the area that you're in, and there's nothing that you can do about it. So this is still the better area for you to push. There's 2 non-turreted tank destroyers and 1 turreted tank destroyer. So this is by far still the best place for you to push across. Again, this is probably something that should have happened before, but at this point, beggars can't be choosers. If you can take out the turret guy first, fantastic. That's something where you probably could have just driven across him. And then, whichever one you can get, you can get.
Target acquired. Penetration.
You want to make slightly tighter circle than that. You're getting a little too far away from him. And so, especially when you're using auto aim, like, okay, so auto aim is not a bad thing right there, especially, you know, you click on when you're back there, but once you click on the auto aim, you gotta look at where you're driving. I mean, that's the whole purpose of using auto aim. If you're gonna use auto aim, you don't need to focus so much on him. Like that's potentially a fatal error, hitting this guy, like especially if this guy is fast enough to turn. I really felt like you could have taken a much tighter circle there, which would have prevented the Nashorn from turning at you at all. The S-35 was already not looking at you, which would have allowed you to take this guy out.
We've damaged them. I can't see the target. Gotcha.
And then you just want to, so like right now you're just doing a little bit too much, you're a little too still. There's no reason, especially against non-turreted tank destroyer, why you're not just going around these guys, especially in a tank like the Comet. There's very, very little reason for you to not be moving here. One already missed you. Just go. Like, there's just far too much sniping there. Just, you need to deal with this guy, and you need to deal with him fast, because he's got friends that are coming over.
We've damaged them.
Now is the time for auto aim, my friend.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it just took you a little too long to get those guys out. And then you basically just want to run away here. You basically run away out to the side if you can. Like, you don't really have to worry about the cap. It's going to take a long time to cap if you can get out the artillery that are over here. What you don't want to do is you don't want to stop. Right? So these guys are separated. You want to keep them separated. Keep moving. Keep going around to the outside. If you can clear Artie out, then that's fine. What you don't want to do is allow them to get together.
One of our tracks is damaged.
And then you can take this guy out. Again, a lot of this is prioritization. There's one of the things that I always talk about in the stream is understand what it is that you're afraid of. Are you afraid of this T-34? Is there really any place that you can go to minimize this T-34's damage? Not really. So you're going to get shot by this T-34 no matter what, and you're going to be able to shoot this T-34 no matter what. So therefore, what you need to do is you need to protect yourself from everyone else. You're not, by sitting where you're sitting, you're not making it any more difficult for this T-34 to damage you. Right? He's still going to be able to damage you. But what you're doing by stopping here is you're making it so that everyone else suddenly is in play.
Penetration. Enemy is hit. Enemy vehicle destroyed.
And you still need to move. You need to get away.
Hit. We're immobilized.
So the Tiger 1's coming through the cap. Just you've been, 30 to 60 seconds behind this entire game. And this is a game that's probably winnable. They're just not very good players. You're just not helping yourself out. You need to just keep running here. There's no reason for you to stop. Now you need to kill this Artie. And you'll have time. You can charge him. Just don't stop. Just, again, Comet, not very accurate on the move, but... Oh, the Hummel did get you. Hey, what are you going to do? So, yeah, anyways, I really felt like you probably could have won this game. You just were too slow. You were always reactionary, and it was even being reactionary in the way this particular map unfolded. You probably could have won, but you were just too slow in your reactionary. But the biggest mistake was heading off to this west side to ostensibly save your PZ-38, which, I mean, your PZ-38 ended up getting away anyways. You were just in a bad position against tanks where you weren't going to be able to trade well against those guys. Right. In the meantime, your guys died in a very winnable encounter. You ended up going over there later and basically soloing those guys, right? And so, I think if you had just done that earlier, just gone over and engaged those tank destroyers, you win the game. And it's not even really that close. It's just a matter of identifying, hey, they've got their Tiger 1 over here, and it's not like you didn't know the Tiger 1 was over there. You knew the Tiger 1 was over there, right? And you still went over there. And that, to me, is completely irrelevant. And it's one of the things that I try to bring up a lot in the stream, is that sometimes you'll get campers, sometimes you'll get guys in the spawn in these encounter maps, and if they're guarding the spawn, let them guard the spawn. Like, if they want to sit back here in this B2 C2 area the entire game, that's fine. That's completely irrelevant to the outcome of the game, because the outcome of the game is still going to be decided over towards the cap, right? And so even if they take this entire lane, that doesn't matter as long as you guys take care of business over here. So if you've got to decide, which side of the map do I want to control? Do I want to control the west side of the map? Do I want to control the east side of the map? Do I want to control the north side of the map? Do I want to control the south side of the map? And when you look at every single map you can be like, okay, well, on encounter on Proc or Fiery Salient or whatever this is, right? I would, if I had my druthers, I would rather control this east side of the map, right? And have the enemy on the west, like all over there. Because I know that I can use these train tracks to protect myself, to spot them as they're entering, to get shots through, and that makes it difficult for them to make that approach into attacking into me, right? And it's the same thing goes the other way. If I'm control the west side of the map, it's really difficult for me to attack into that east side without some amount of coordination. But yeah, I think that probably ended up being your biggest mistake. And then again, just as far as tactically concerned, if you're going to use auto aim, like, make sure that you drive your tank. Like, that's the whole purpose of auto aim, is so that you don't have to, so that you don't run into things. Occasionally you still will, but in that particular case, I didn't really feel like that was necessary. And again, you could have made a tighter circle, especially against non-turreted tank destroyers. Make tighter circles against them; they just can't keep up. And that's what you don't want to do, is stop nearly as much as you did. So I felt like this was a really winnable game. You just needed to do any one of many things. But again, I think the biggest thing was if you had kept those guys alive here. Again, also earlier in the game, you had an opportunity where you could have dealt more damage onto the zero line, which would have made it easier for your guys on the zero line. And at the end of the day, that's really what you're looking to do: keep guys alive, or make it easier for them to actually push through areas. All right, so if we look at stats. Yeah, you didn't get a whole lot out of your team. I'm not entirely sure what Amb was doing on that 2 line anyways. Again, on encounter mode, just that 2 line. I mean, I guess as long as the light tank as long as there's someone out there to spot the approach, and then run away, that's all that you really need. You don't really need a whole lot of presence on that 2 line, unless for some reason you're going to push that 2 line, which I don't really feel is a super great idea anyways, but them's the breaks. You did shoot pretty well considering the distances that you're shooting at. The Comet's not super accurate. Comet's also not very good on the move, but at the ranges that you were engaging most of the guys, you'd rather engage them on the move than stop, especially when you're in artillery lanes and in other lanes. But not bad. GG. Nice try. Alright, so we'll do one more. So we'll do PrettyDirty's E5 game. Well, the Comet controller alpha, so sometimes it's difficult to apply that DPM, but a lot of that game, you know, moving and hiding every time. If nobody's shooting at you, you're like bobbing and weaving, and it's like, dude, nobody's shooting at you, nobody's looking at you, just get the damage out. Alright, so top tier, not a whole lot of 10s. There's 6 10s. They've got slightly more armor, which is potentially a problem. You still need to play almost no matter what tank you're in. I really feel like the West is still the most important. It just, the composition basically dictates how far you'll push forward. So like in this type of comp where you've got an E5 and then the rest of your heavies are basically tier 9 and they've got an E5, 215B mouse, you can't really push through to this area here yet, but you do want to push up through this, at least through this middle area here. If your faster tanks actually get some intel about what's coming across, then you'll do that, but otherwise you're just trying to slow play this side a little bit. But let's see what your dispersion looks like. You're not getting a whole lot of support. Your T30s are coming this way, so that's something to keep in mind. But for the most part, you need to probably not push more forward than this sort of south side of the D line, north side of the E line, because you do need to be able to fall back. And so one of the things that you want to be able to do is basically allow this area here to be clear. So like this T30 will be up in this area right here. So as long as you can prevent guys from basically driving into the D line, then that will be fine. When you do have a lot of guys, and so this is one of the things, like when you have a bunch of guys over here and they haven't spotted anything, it's sometimes it's just because they're not really spotting, but a lot of times what happens is the reason why they didn't spot anything over there is because there's nothing over there, or there's very little over there, or there's some guys in the back or whatever, right? So the whole point though is that a lot of intel is deductive information, which means that them not seeing anything over there kind of means that you might see a lot of things over here, and so that has to affect your positioning. So even though you do have a good half of your team here, you don't necessarily want to play this really strong. You want to be a little bit more exploratory. You want to figure out, okay, well, let's see if we can figure out where their guys are at, and then not overplay our hand quite yet. And then one of the things that you do want to do is you want to angle your tank back a little bit. Like you want to be a little bit more, like if you turn your tracks a little bit more to your right, because that's basically going to create a sharp angle on your front there, because you're basically hold down, but that will allow you a better retreat. So we do know where the mouse is. There is a Panzer there. Lol, 5100. 5100 is like, I'll trade with the E5. I got this. Oh, apparently he does have it. Oh, look at him go. You should have got that shot and then repaired the commander, but it's alright. Okay, and again, so you did have a bunch of guys move forward to this line right here, but they're not committed into here, which is fine. You see how you have vision control on these outside lanes. Like if these guys aren't here or this T-30 isn't here, you don't know what's coming down these lanes. So when you don't know what's coming down these lanes, you don't want to be in that position where these guys are at, because there's no way to push out from there. But since you do, that's potentially good. But that doesn't necessarily mean that these guys are going to live for a certain amount of time. So you do need to keep an eye on that. As far as the positioning on this other side, right, your guys are probably going to be able to beat it. Well, one would hope they're going to be able to beat a Panther too. These guys right here are going to be a little bit of a problem, but these guys right here can't actually protect the Panther too. So if these guys just push, they clear out that side and you have control. So what you're still looking at here is a slow play on your side. You're not looking to rush this necessarily. Good shot. And you should, so you need to be sticking your face out here a little bit more, because what you're actually trying to do, like, see how the T-34 is in front for you? You need to make yourself a little bit more of a target, so that they're not tempted to drive forward and shoot this T-34. So you hiding back here during your reloads actually is making it so that this guy is getting shot. And so it's one of those things where, like, I don't feel like this is a bad position where you're at. I'm not like, oh man, you should be in the front. Like I said, you still need to see how this is going to play out. But even from this back position, you can support this T-34. Like, if they want to sit out there in the open and shoot him, there's nothing that you can do. Just like if they wanted to just drive around there and shoot him, there's nothing that you can do other than shoot him. But if they're going to sit back here in the peak, and you're sitting back, right, so they're not afraid of you, then that's going to give them sort of courage to shoot this guy for free. And so just because you're back here doesn't mean that you can't help protect this guy. You just need to make yourself more of a target so that these guys are like, oh, is he loaded? Or even shoot at you. Because at this point, you'd rather have them shoot at you than shoot at that T-34, because that is not a good position for him against those tanks. And then see how they did push forward there? Which is fine. You've got guys here. So at this point, you need to move forward, though. Because even though this 215B is going to be able to shoot you, what you need to be able to do is you need to be able to move forward. It doesn't really matter. Unless the 215B is the guy that's actually threatening your team. When you look at the guys that are threatening your team, it says 5100 and whatever that other guy is. I can't actually see what he is. T-32, right? There's these tier 8s that are actually shooting your team. So what you need to do is you need to move forward to a position, even if this 215B shoots you, where you can actually shoot these guys. Because if this guy's not punishing your team, again, we go back to prioritization. What's important to shoot, right? What you really want to do, especially, you know, you're in a frontline tank, but you're not really frontline right now. These guys are fronting for you, but you still need to cover them. And it's the same thing. Like if this guy was in the E5 and you were in the T-34, right? You still need to look to cover this guy, right? And shooting the guys that are in the back that aren't shooting your guy, that's not really helping them. What you need to do is get yourself into a position where you can actually shoot the guys that are shooting them, because that's where, even if you get shot in the process, that's what's going to end up being important. And again, you're spending too much of your reload too far back here. You need to be a little bit more of a target. Like now you're starting to reach that area where you're basically just milking these guys. You're back there, and in a sense, being back there is fine. But if you're not actually covering them, right? If you're shooting at some guy in the back, you're not actually helping them. You're just kind of sniping from back there, and that really doesn't make their job any easier, especially as this guy starts to push around this way. So you need to go. You need to get on your horse. Like, there's no reason why these lower tier, less armor tanks should be taking hits for you while you snipe from the back at this point. Like, there's no reason at all. None. You just gotta do it, man. Because think of it this way: if these guys die, everybody's gonna die, right? If you don't have these guns, then that's gonna really hurt you. There's no way that you're gonna be able to stop 6 tanks, right? You need to help keep those guys alive. Like, there's no reason. Like, this T-32, again, this T-32 isn't the guy that's bombing out your team. They've literally got a mouse that just drove in through the side, right? They've got this guy right here that can shoot at a sharp angle through them there. They've got, well, that is the T-32. And the rest of them don't really else have shots. But it just feels like you're milking your team. Like, there's no reason. There's, like, why are you trying to snipe the cupola of this T-32? just... Look, they even have the 215B come in here. They've got all their top tier tanks fighting all of your low bottom tier tanks, and you're watching. You're just like, hey guys, let me know how it goes, alright? And that is absolutely unconscionable. Like, you're just allowing them to die in a top tier heavy, one of the best heavies in the game. Just, you gotta try. You have to try harder to save your team. Like, you're just not. Like, you don't care.
We didn't even scratch them.
And that's karma. And that was just a bad shot. You need to shoot that lower. But you're just, I mean, you might as well just drive forward and shoot your own M103 right now, because that's basically what you've done this entire game.
Gotcha.
You've basically boned that guy. This E5 is now pushing in. No, the E5! He's right here, my man! Save your friends!
Enemy is hit. We've lost a track.
And like, there's no reason why you shouldn't just push across there. Because you're gonna lose this flank eventually. Or not. Oh, you got an FE-183 there. Yeah, you're allowing your team to front for you far too much here. And you just shouldn't.
Penetration.
And then, so now you can slow play it a little, because this guy's no longer in danger, right? So now you can play this a little bit softer. Yeah, that was completely unnecessary. You didn't need to do that at all. You could just deal damage to him. One, he's not a good player. Two, he's got no backup. Like, there's no reason for you just to keep this guy even tracked here. If you're not going to deal damage. Like, he could be dead right now.
Penetration.
Is your M103, like, stuck over there? I don't know what he's doing.
Enemy armor is hit.
Oh man, the late breaking 121.
Penetration.
Unfortunately, your M103 is not paying attention, but it's fine. Oh, you got this. I don't know why 121 would want to try to duel an E5 from point blank. There's the E5 depression is too good. And like the 121, he's gonna have problems even shooting into your lower glaciers from this range. Whereas you can, so you don't want to drive too far forward. Like, even if your M103 didn't just try to shoot you there, you don't want to drive too far forward again, because you're going to start exposing yourself potentially to Arty, depending on where they're at. But basically to this E75. This is one of the things that we talk about a lot as far as defensive positioning. Like, you being close to that 121, okay, maybe. But it's not that big of a deal, especially since what you can do is you can prop your butt up on this hill here, which will lower your lower glaciers, which will make it really difficult for him to pen. And that was just a bad shot.
We're immobilized.
Luckily, this guy is also not very good.
Enemy is hit.
He keeps trying to side hug you, like he thinks that that's good.
Let's go. We didn't
Well,
even scratch them.
you should be able to reposition to the point where you can just shoot him. You're making this more difficult than it needs to be. Just drive away from him a little bit and shoot him. Like, you've got the gun depression to shoot him, and there's no reason why you should be glued to him. You should just shoot him. I don't know why you drove all the way around there, but
One of our tracks is damaged.
and then now is when you should be trying to track him.
Enemy armor is hit. We're
I don't need
immobilized.
to move back quite that far. But
Penetration.
And then see how they've got two guys over here, which is fine. You actually need to push this E75 because he's basically ISO'd right now. I mean, there's a chance that he could one-shot you, but it's pretty low. You just gotta do it. Oh, don't go around the side! You came around a little bit too side profile, which is completely unnecessary. You can aim. You got plenty of time. You just need to do it, my man. Unfortunately, now the E75 is gonna get you. It's gonna cost you. Yeah. Well, I mean, so there were a number of mistakes, but tactically speaking, again, that E75 you should have been able to take out. Just drive around the corner. If he shoots you, he shoots you. That's fine. Whatever. Get your 2 shots. You know, if you can get him, kill him in 1 shot, then that's fantastic. But you didn't, right? You would need to get a pretty high roll in order to 1-shot him. But just secure that kill. He's ISO'd. Just get it done, right? And then there's nothing that 1390 can do to you. Just took you a little bit too long. A lot of the game, you know, again, coming to this side early on is not necessarily bad. Sitting in the back early on is not necessarily bad. But once the brawl starts, once the front line becomes engaged, you can't continue to sit in the back. You just can't. Not in an E5, top tier heavy. You can't let your guys sit in the front like that without you actually doing something to cover them. That's just horrible. And then just a couple of things as far as dealing damage, like for that M103 that was side profile. There's sometimes you basically want to track tanks when your teammates will get additional shots, or if you can, if there's some reason, you know, like, oh, I need to get away from this guy, I need to get into better positioning. Otherwise, tracking him is not necessarily the most important thing for you to do. So as far as like dealing damage to that M103, you could have done that pretty easily instead. But yeah, I mean that's probably something that you could have won. You just need to do a better job of actually protecting your team. And again, you'll notice that once you lost that vision control on the side, then it becomes, or on either side really, it becomes easier for these guys to move into those flanks, which means it's more important for you to be able to control those lanes or prevent them or punish them if they do come in through that side. I get a feeling this is going to go the distance here.
We've lost a track.
Hello. Yeah, he got 2 of them. Wasn't the right 2, but he did get 2 of them. Anyhow, yeah, I mean, I felt like you could have won that. And again, like in that early game, I think it's fine coming over here given the comps. You know that they have more armor than you. You've got about split teams. But once that engagement starts, you need to be involved. And I feel like if you had done that, you know, would have preserved the health of a lot of these guys, and would have made your life a lot easier because you wouldn't have had to have had so many, you know, one-on-ones after that. But them's the breaks. Alright, so we look at the stats. Your team did alright. I don't think their team really did anything special. Yeah. It was okay shooting, just far too much wasted track shots, I think. Yeah, I don't know. It's if you had gotten involved like earlier on any of those points, I really feel like, or not even that. I mean, if you just played it tactically better, you know, at the very end, you also could have won. So that's a tough break. But nice try.